Jemima Pierre. She is the Haiti America's Coordinator of Black Alliance for Peace and a regular contributor to the Black Agenda Report, where she has written extensively on U.S. policy in Haiti. Thank you so much for joining me. The Biden administration's special envoy to Haiti just resigned. What do you make of that?
I think it's extraordinary to have such an honest resignation. Usually people resign and they're saying they were happy to have served and so on. What I do think about it, though, what's not getting coverage in the news with the resignation letter is the last paragraph of the resignation letter, where he says, the core group, which are the people who run Haiti, basically are supporting what he says an unelected and de facto prime minister. And he castigates the hubris of the U.S. and the core group for what he says, believing that we should pick the winner again. And to me, that actually points more to what's really going on in Haiti in terms of the causes of this migration and the continuing U.S. meddling in Haiti.
We also heard about the potential for contractors to staff detention centers in places like Gitmo. Could there be any connection to the Haitian migrants in this instance?
Oh, certainly. But for people who are too young to remember, before Guantanamo Bay was used to house POWs, what George W. Bush wanted to call enemy combatants, it was used to house Haitian asylum seekers, especially in early 1991, after the U.S.-backed coup d'etat against the first democratically elected president. And that place was terrible. You know, there were tents. There were thousands of Haitian migrants kept in Guantanamo in legal limbo, and it was just one. I'm so sorry. It was okay. a terrible place that had to be closed down because the Haitians were being treated so badly. So this brings back terrible memories for the Haitian community, and it really sets another terrible precedent.
Do you think that this administration is keeping its promise to do better with immigration and reverse some of the inhumane policies of the Trump administration, or is this more of the same? And let me stipulate that even doing better than the Trump administration isn't saying much, but there's an open question now of whether this is even better.
Well, Trump was not, sending multiple planes and expelling people immediately the way that Biden has done it. Within 2 days, you're sending plane loads of people back to Haiti. And the other thing is, a report just came out that Biden was using the Title 42 policy, where you basically use a health situation to keep people from coming to even ask for asylum. So Trump is the one that started using that in order to basically not even allow people who have the legal right to ask for asylum, not even allow them to do it, and basically deport people before they can access the asylum system. Well, Biden continued to do that, and just last week a judge ruled against it and said you cannot use that. And the first thing that the Biden administration did was appeal that ruling. And the numbers are that he's deported around 690,000 people already from January to now under this Title 42. So I'm not sure that's any better than Trump. In fact, it's worse than Trump, considering the numbers are saying that Trump only deported 440,000 under Title 42.
Wow. And we're hearing that some of the asylum seekers are being processed by immigration and may settle in the United States. What's that journey going to be like for them?
Well, it's a very long journey. And what people don't want to understand is that the reason that there's a backup and there's so many thousands of migrants stuck at the Texas and just U.S. Mexico borders, Arizona, Texas, California, is because there's been this process of slowing down numbers to seek asylum, right? The process called metering, which started under the Obama administration in 2016, which was carried through by Trump. And then Trump just really made it worse by his Remain in Mexico policy, which apparently Biden tried to revoke, but then the court said, no, he has to do the Remain in Mexico, which means that for you to even come up for asylum, you have to wait for weeks and months to get a number at the border to put in your case. And now, once you put in your case for asylum, you have to remain in Mexico as your case walks through the courts. And this can take years for an asylum case to go through the courts, because there's already a backlog of almost a decade of asylum cases. So that tells you this is a big mess. And so even if they're here, the handful that they're going to be allowed in, as opposed to put it in prison, because that's the other thing, large numbers of asylum seekers in prisons waiting to ask for asylum to have their cases go through. So even if they go through that, they might still be deported, and they might be here for years waiting for asylum claims to go through.
Wow, such important information, such an extraordinary moment in history that we're dealing with. Many expected these circumstances, some of which were foreseeable, to be managed differently by the Biden administration than the Trump administration, and yet here we are. Dr. Pierre, thank you so much for joining me on Black News Tonight. We'll continue to cover this issue because it affects Black people around the diaspora, and therefore Black News Tonight is going to cover it.